Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Jason Stapleton program. So glad that you are joining me here today for what is the last show of 2017. Can you believe it? We are all the way through. Christmas is right around the corner, and then we're into New Year's, and then back with new shows starting on the 15th because I need some time to get myself out to California. And I thought a lot about what I wanted to talk about today, and I can go through the news. We got great articles here, and I'll probably hit a few of them here as we get into the back half of the show. But I really wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about, I don't want to call them New Year's resolutions because nobody follows those, but I really want to talk to you guys about what you're doing and what 2017 looked like and what you want 2018 to look like. And I've been having conversations with people that I do business with, and I've been having conversations with people that I have done business with, and talking about what I want to see out of the new year and what I hope to achieve, and kind of setting myself up mentally and creating a roadmap for myself of what I want to do. And so I thought I would just be kind of open with you guys and share with you a little bit about that, and hopefully it will inspire you as well to do the same thing. And again, normally I do this stuff on the fly, I'm kind of off the cuff, but I really wanted to make a concerted effort today to talk to you a little bit about it because we are into the new year. It's 2017 is over. Whatever happened this year has happened. And the only thing, you can't change what happened yesterday. All you can do is change what happens tomorrow. You can set yourself up to improve on life tomorrow. So before we get into that, let me tell you about our first sponsor, SeatGeek. Guys love SeatGeek. Absolutely love them. What a great sponsor of this show. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it is by far the easiest way that I have found to shop for tickets. I can be anywhere. And with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I actually just use SeatGeek to buy tickets to the Sporting KC game. It's that easy. You can do it too. SeatGeek is designed to make it super easy. They search multiple ticket sites, compare prices on all of them. They even color code their seats so you know you're always getting the best price for your money. Make SeatGeek your go-to app for finding the best deals on every type of ticket, from sports to concerts to comedy to theater, everything. So right now, this is the best part. My listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code Stapleton today. That's promo code Stapleton for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. So this has been a crazy year for me, if I'm just being honest with you. And some of it I can talk about right now, and some of it I can't. And trust me, I will give a full accounting just as soon as it's humanly possible for me to do so. But one of the things that has happened over this year is that the show just exploded in 2016. And we climbing by leaps and bounds. And I came into this year and I'm thinking we're going to have 100,000 listeners by the end of 2017. That's my goal. And I don't see any reason why we can't do that given the massive growth that we had out of the show, the other 2.5 years that we've been doing it. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from a production company that says, hey, would you like to make a television show? And in the back of my mind, I am thinking, yeah, I would like to make a television show. I'm thinking, imagine being able to have your face on TV and 3 million people knowing who you are and what your name is. Imagine what that would do for the show. And I thought to myself, this is a way to really lift exposure. Those of you who have invested in my Kickstarter program, and those of you who are getting involved in the podcast domination course, one of the things that we are going to talk a lot about is building influence. And how do you build celebrity and authority? And one of the ways you do that is to freaking be on TV. Now, it's not that easy to get there, right? So you don't start out there. Like the two-step process is not, start a podcast and step 2, get on TV. Like there's stages in there that you have to go through in ways to build your persona so that you'll get that phone call, or when you have that meeting, that you'll be able to promote yourself in a way that gives you access to those kinds of things. But that's all stuff that, of course, I'm going to cover in the course. But what I'm getting at is I looked at it as this huge, just massive opportunity for me to just blow up this audience and spread this message of liberty out to people who would never have otherwise heard of me or heard of the show. And so I said yes. And I thought initially, as I started the thing, that it was going to be, probably about a month of shooting, about 15 days of shooting to do, because we had 5 episodes we had to do. And so I thought, okay, 3 days per episode is roughly what they were telling me. I tacked 2 days on the end of that for travel, talking about 5 days per episode, 5 times 5, about 30 days of total shooting time. And by the time we got done with it, it was like 70 days or something like that. It was just an unbelievable amount of time. And as you guys know, being avid and regular listeners of the show, it was like I was here a week and then I was gone a week, then I was here a week and I was gone a week. And of course, not only do people get tired of that, but the show also suffers because of that, because I can't devote the time and I can't get into the rhythm that I would normally get into if I was behind the microphone every day. And keep in mind that up until this time, I'm still only doing the show part-time. Like I have a business that I'm running on top of the a television show that I'm doing, on top of the podcast that I'm doing. And I just released a video kind of talking about the dollars that came in, the money that came in from the podcast this year. And frankly, it was this year up until about, 3 months ago or so, it was really on the low end of kind of the money that I had brought in for the year. So in terms of things financially that were bringing in the revenue, the podcast was really a side project that I was working on, a passion project, if you will. And so I knew I wanted to do it full time. I wanted to figure out a way to get into it full time, but I really didn't know how to go about it. And then when I saw the TV show opportunity, I thought to myself, well, there it is. Now I'm going to do the TV show. That's going to blow the audience up. I'm going to be able to, have more listeners, more revenue, and that's how I'm going to be able to do it. And it turns out that none of that happened. That this year, the show is basically maintained. We basically carried forward. Those of you who love the show, listen to the show. Those of you in the private Facebook group are there. Darren is working on other projects, and I got to talk to you about that when I get a chance to talk to you about it. But Darren's working on other projects, so he hasn't been able to do the show with me here over the last couple of months since I got back. The studio, since I'm leaving to go to California, the studio's not there anymore. And so we're in kind of this holding pattern here over the last 2 months or so, where I'm finishing up the TV show and I'm trying to get back into the rhythm for the last part of this year to do the podcast. And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to turn this into what I think it can be? And I want to, if I can deviate a little bit and move this away from me and kind of onto you for a minute, there are lots of times in our lives when things don't work out the way we want them to. Like we have this vision for how things are going to turn out, and we have a vision for what life is going to look like. And then when the reality sets in, it's so much different than what we expected. And at the end of the day, it might turn out looking like, this really isn't what I wanted to do. And so at the same time, a lot of times that presents us with our greatest opportunities, right? So I was in Los Angeles, and I was there as doing part of the TV show thing, and I took a meeting with Westwood, who handles all of the advertising for my show. And Westwood and I do a split of revenue, so they handle all the back end for me. And I basically do nothing except do the show and read the ads that I approve. So I approve the ads and then I read them, of course. And so we're going through this process, and I sit down across from the head of podcasting. And I was actually the very first podcast that Westwood One brought on when they started their podcast division. And I sat down with her, I won't say her name, but the person who is in charge of podcasting, and the podcasting over at Westwood has gotten really big over the last couple of years. And I sat down across from her and I said, listen, it's been a really great run, but next year I really want to take the show full time. I really want to do it full time. And I need more revenue in order to be able to provide all the support assets that are going to be necessary. And although I love this relationship, I said I really don't think I'm going to be able to continue it because I'm going to need the revenue that's coming from the show that essentially we're doing a split on in order to take this show where I want it to go. And she was wonderfully nice about it. I mean, I totally understand. She said, well, kind of what do you need? And I said, well, things are changing around my office. I don't know if I'm going to have access to the studio anymore. And she said, Darren is having to go work on other projects. And so he doesn't have, he's not going to be able to do the show with me. So I don't have a producer. And she said, well, what if we gave you a studio? And I said, well, that'd be really nice. She said, well, what if we gave you a producer? Oh, I said that would be really good too. And she said, well, what if you had, a bit of an advertising budget and, we did some cooperation with some other shows and, did some cross promotion stuff to kind of help build the show up. I said, well, that'd be awesome. I said, that'd be incredible. She said, well, we can do that. She said, if you want to stay with us, we have studio space right down the road here in Los Angeles. And you can use it. Like, it's yours. Like, we'll set it up for you. We'll give you a studio. We'll sign you a producer, and, they'll take care of everything. You can literally walk in, prepare your show, and just deliver your show. No post-production work, which is stuff I'm doing now. No preparing stuff. It's like just you come in, you do what you need to do to deliver the best show ever, and then we'll take care of the rest. And I'm looking at that going, man, after everything that has happened, after the fact that the show has, it didn't hit the 100,000 listener mark that I wanted it to this year. And I'm looking at what I think are a minimal number of options in my life in order to do what I want to do, which is take this show full time. And I'm sitting across the table from someone I've had a fantastic relationship with for 2 years and telling them, listen, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to split up. We're going to have to separate ourselves because I need the money that I'm paying you. And she turns around and says, what if I gave you everything you needed to make the show exactly what you wanted it to be? And just out of nowhere. But I was planning the whole time. You see, I was open to these ideas. I was looking for an answer to my problems. And I think a lot of times we as human beings, we go with the flow. We react to life. Instead of being proactive in our lives, instead of taking opportunity and deciding what we want to have out of life and then going and searching for it and grabbing it by the horns and saying, I will have this. This will be mine. We end up taking this really softball approach that says, well, that's probably never going to happen for me, or that dream is too big, or I can't see the path from here to there. I don't know how I'm going to make next month's rent, much less how I'm going to make my first $1 million. There's too much distance between where I want to be and where I am now. And here's the crazy thing about it. I heard this analogy used one time. I think it's brilliant. It said you can drive across the country from New York to San Diego at night, seeing only the next 20 yards in front of you. Your headlights will only illuminate the next 20 to 50 yards ahead of you. And you can go all the way across the country seeing only the next 20 to 50 yards. And a lot of times in life, guys, that's what our life is. Our life is only seeing the next 20 yards. We can only see the next step, and we don't know what happens. After that, it's total darkness. It's all black, and it's freaking scary. But if you just take that next step, if you will just walk in that direction for the next 50 feet, the next 50 feet will become open to you and you'll be able to see, and you'll be able to go a little bit farther. And there are times when you're going to make wrong turns, and there are times when things aren't going to work out, and you're going to feel lost and confused and frustrated and angry and scared. But you know what? You just keep walking. But it doesn't happen without a clear vision for what you want out of your life. And truthfully, I don't know what you want out of your life. We talked the other day about some guy who wants to work a 9-to-5 job, come home punch after punching his clock, and have a couple of beers and play video games. And you know what? If he could have that kind of dead-end menial labor job for the next 20 years or 30 years, and he could collect a paycheck and come home and play video games and drink beer and hang out with his buddies on the weekend, he'd be totally happy with that. That's not the type of person that I'm talking to today. I'm talking to the person who really wants to change their life, who wants something radically different than what they have now. Whether it be financially, whether it be personally or professionally, whatever it is, you have to have a clear vision of what you want to create, because that's the only way that your mind can see clear enough to manifest that. I was talking with a friend of mine on the phone today, and we were talking about kind of what we wanted to get out of 2018. We're in different industries, but we were talking about kind of what we wanted to achieve and what we wanted to do. And I said, well, hey, listen, if this is what he told me what he wanted to do. And I said, listen, if this is what you want to do, then you have to keep visualizing it. You have to put that picture in your head, because I'm a huge proponent of visualization. Not because I think if you visualize money showing up in your mailbox, that checks are going to suddenly arrive in your mailbox. I'm not a fool, right? But I do believe that there is a scientific principle behind visualization, that it puts your mind in a place where you are susceptible to opportunities that take you where you want to go. I don't think it was on accident that I was trying to figure out a way to take my show full time, and I just happened to be in Los Angeles when the producer from Westwood called me on the phone. She actually sent me an email. And I sent her an email back and I said, yeah, can we get on a phone call? I need to talk to you about next year. I hadn't told her that I was leaving. And I said, maybe we can get on a phone call. I said, I'm out in Los Angeles right now, but just let me know what time works for you. And she said, oh, I'm in Los Angeles too. See, I thought she was in Chicago. The last time I'd met her, she was working and living in Chicago. She said, no, I just moved out to Los Angeles. Let's have lunch. And so that afternoon we met for lunch. I don't think that's on accident. I think that has to do with someone being in the right frame of mind and being in the right place at the right time to accept the opportunity that's in front of them. Because too often we're closed off mentally, emotionally to the opportunities that present themselves. We have opportunity around us all the time, every one of us. Whatever you're trying to achieve out of your life, there is an opportunity somewhere that's presenting itself. And if you are not putting yourself in the right frame of mind, you're not going to see it. It's like when we try and talk to people about liberty who are clearly far too right-wing, far too progressive to be able to even receive the message. They're just too close-minded. If you are constantly filling your head with this notion that, I'm never going to be good enough, or I'm never going to achieve that, or this isn't, that's too far away, or I can't see that road, or my dad never made anything out of himself, my grandfather never made anything out of himself, and I've never known anybody who got out of this particular neighborhood. So you know what? I'm just going to resign myself to the fact that I never will either. If that's the type of mindset you have, you will never be in a position to be successful. So now let me talk to you guys who don't live in the ghetto. You're a middle-class family, and you're making decent money. You're not making great money, but you're making decent money. And you're looking at 2017, and you're asking yourself, well, was this a good year or was it a bad year? It doesn't matter whether it was good or bad. The question is always, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What do I need to do from here? Where am I going? What is it I want to achieve? At the end of 2018, what would need to happen in order for me to look back and feel like I had been successful? That's a critical question to ask yourself. Now, if I'm looking back at 2017, when I started 2017, I said, well, if I hit 100,000 listeners a day, I am going to consider that to be a success. And now I look at it and I say, well, clearly by that measuring stick, I was not successful. I did have some good things happen, but I needed those numbers to go up, and they didn't. So now I have to adjust fire into 2018, and that's what I've been doing for the last several months, is saying, okay, 2017 is not going to end the way I wanted it to. I'm not going to hit the numbers that I thought I was going to hit. What do I have to do? I'm not wallowing in my own self-pity. I'm not saying to myself, well, I knew it was eventually going to all fall apart. Well, I knew eventually I'd hit the wall. No, I look at it and I say, okay, what do I have to do to grow? What do I have to do? What changes do I need to make in order to hit what I need to hit? And as soon as I started thinking like that, as soon as I started allowing my mind to consider the opportunities, look at what fell into my lap. Incredible. And guys, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you did over the last 12 months, the truth is those months are gone. If you were wildly successful, great. Let's continue on that track. Let's set a new set of goals so that we can hit the next mile marker in your life. And if you weren't successful, if you failed, if you came out of 2000, if it felt like fight night when you get done with 2017, brush it off. We all start at zero in January. It's it's a little scary thing, I guess, but it's a beautiful thing. Because it begs the question, what am I going to do today? I've lived that way for a long time because every month I got to hit numbers. Every month the money's got to come in. And I don't get a regular paycheck like everybody else. So the flip side is I make a decent amount of money. I don't want to say I make a lot of money, but I make a decent amount of money. And so it's a little bit easier for me because I have some security that I'll be able to produce. But there was plenty of time in my life where I didn't know where the next paycheck was coming from. Or I didn't know how I was going to make money that month. I just knew I had to make some money. And so in your life, you're going to hit periods where you are struggling and where everything seems dark and where you're not sure exactly what it is you need to do if you're going to be successful and to move the ball forward. But clarity of purpose is critical. Knowing where you want to be, and then secondly, visualizing yourself there. The guy I did this television show with, his name is Travis Taylor, and he's got a couple of PhDs in astrophysics and a bunch of other stuff. He actually wrote a book called The Secret Behind the Secret. And I don't know if you guys remember the Secret movie that came out, which is kind of this idea that it's really about visualization and saying, if you visualize things, good things happening, good things will happen. And likewise, if you visualize bad things happening, bad things happen. And while I don't agree with everything in the film, and most certainly Travis doesn't, what Travis said was, he said there is scientific proof that visualization works. He says your brain works like a quantum computer. And he said you can actually manifest things. He said the universe works like this. He said you can actually manifest things. It's been proven scientifically that this can be done. And you'd have to read the book to understand it, because it's got a whole bunch of I guess, what do you call it, scientific stuff in it that I can't regurgitate offhand. But a phenomenal book. And we would sit and talk about it over dinner. And he'd share with me his ideas about the universe and about visualization and how you create your own destiny and those kinds of things. And I was fascinated with him because he's been very, very, very successful in his own life. And he's a true believer in this same form of, I guess, of manifestation as I am. And so as you look into, I guess if I can close it up, I'd say this. As you look into 2018, do a couple of things for me. Number one, do a self-assessment, not a critical self-assessment, but a realistic self-assessment of what happened in 2017. And many of you are going to find that you really didn't have any goals. That you really didn't have money. You were just kind of trying to get by. That you were putting out one fire after another. It was the car broke down, and then the kids got sick, and so it just felt like you were playing catch up all year. And so don't worry about that, but do a real self-assessment of where you were at in 2017 and what you accomplished, and then start laying some goals out for 2018. And then start visualizing where you want to be. And again, the question I would ask is, what would need to happen? This is Dan Sullivan says this, okay? Dan Sullivan is a business coach and kind of a life coach. And he says, what does he say? What would need to happen in the next 12 months for you to look back and say you'd been a success? And whatever that is, start visualizing what your life looks like having done that. Maybe it's to make, $10,000 on your own outside of your regular job. Maybe it's to make $1 million. Whatever it is, start thinking about it and visualizing it. And I promise you, when 2018 comes to a close, you're going to be far closer to that goal than you ever dreamed possible. And this is the time to do it, because you've got time off from work. You're going to be spending time with family. You're going to be drinking the eggnog and eating the food. Plenty of time to consider what you want next year to look like and what you want your life to look like moving forward. All right, guys, let me tell you a little bit about TrackR. Wallet, phone, keys, whatever you got, leaving the house is always a struggle for people like me because you are always misplacing your stuff. Not anymore with TrackR. Now it's this little tiny disc that you can put on literally on anything. And what it does is it has a GPS tracker in it. And it's called the TrackR Pixel, and you never have to worry about losing things again. It's a Bluetooth tracking device that uses your phone to track your stuff. It has a 90 decibel alert that will help you find what you lost in seconds. It even has a powerful LED light that shines so that you can find anything in the dark. Lose your phone? All right, just press the TrackR Pixel and your phone will ring. So it works in both ways. Let's say you got your keys, can't find your phone. Well, your keys have the TrackR on them. Just click that. It'll tell you where your phone is. And TrackR has a 30-day money-back guarantee, means you have absolutely nothing to lose. Now, go to thetrackr.com/Stapleton and /Jason, thetrackr.com/Jason and get 20% off any order. That's thetrackr.com/Jason for 20% off. thetrackr.com/Jason. Stapleton. I really do like this because there's all kinds of stuff that I lose, and they're really small, and you can stick them on really just about anything. All right. So let's talk about the floating cities. We've talked about this a couple of different times, and I love this, but the reason I'm bringing it back up today is it looks like they're going to have the first floating city built by 2020. And this is being bankrolled and supported by Peter Thiel, who founded PayPal. He was one of the guys who bankrolled that. Stunning. I'm going to read from the article now. This is from the Daily Mail in the UK. It says, stunning concept images of the world's first floating nation have been released as part of a project bankrolled by PayPal founder Peter Thiel. The plan will see the sea-bound city-state complete with a handful of hotels, homes, offices, restaurants, and more built in the Pacific Ocean off the Isle of Tahiti in 2020. Now, I believe Tahiti is I think it's French Polynesia. Is that right? So that's between Africa, South America, and Australia, if I'm not mistaken, if my high school geography doesn't fail me. All right. So the floating island would feature agricultural farms, healthcare, medical research facilities, and sustainable energy powerhouses. Here's the idea behind this: is that it's bankrolled by a group called, or it's started by a group called the nonprofit Seastead Institute, which hopes to, quote, liberate humanity from politicians. And while I admire that as a principle for wanting to get rid of politicians, I think the idea of getting rid of government on any large scale is kind of a fool's errand. It may work on a really small scale. Like if you've got, they're talking about having 300 inhabitants on this first little island. But I think on a large scale, when you think about the way human beings associate with one another and the way that that there has to be at some point somebody there has to be decision makers, right? I know that some of you will disagree with that, but just history has proven that no society has ever arranged itself in a way that doesn't allow for some sort of decision maker. There has to be, again, someone who has the authorization to use force. Otherwise, it's the biggest and the strongest who end up running over everybody else. So, and I won't get into that. We've talked about it before. I really don't want to. Maybe I should have the conversation again. I don't know. Basically, it works like this. At some point, somebody is going to wrong somebody else. And there has to be some way for you to, I call it, seek a redress of grievances. So somebody comes to your house and they break in and they steal, I don't know, they steal your chair. And then you go over, you're walking down the street, you look in the next guy's window and you see your chair in there and you realize that's the guy who stole your chair. And so you need to get your chair back. But that guy's a lot bigger than you, he's a lot stronger than you, and you can't just walk into the house and kick his door down and beat the crap out of him and take your chair back, right? So you decide that you are going to go through the legal system. And this can be arbitration, it can be a courtroom. There are a lot of different ways to set up the way you would prosecute something like this. But whatever you decide to do, you end up going to court or to mediation, and it is determined, or arbitration, and it is determined that yes, that chair was stolen from you because your name's right on the bottom of it. And so the judge or the arbitrator says you are required, Mr. Neighbor, to give your chair back to this other guy. And all is well and good in the world as long as your neighbor actually gives you the chair back. In the event that he doesn't give you the chair back, what do you now do? Because this guy's a lot bigger and stronger than you. You don't have the skills necessary in order to take your chair back by force. So you're going to turn back to somebody who then will enforce the judge's decision or the arbiter's decision in order to ensure that your property is returned to you and the wrong is righted. Okay? Whoever that person is, or group of people or organization that does that, that is essentially a government because they have the ability to use force. Now, they may have it to use in very specific niches initially, and that may be just fine, but what do we know about people who have the ability to use force? It's just a matter of time before that is expanded upon. This is what we see in every government, in every society, is that those in power are always anxious to seek more. And so the idea that you would have a society devoid of any politician or any government is probably not all that likely. But what I do love about this, just love it, is the fact that in this society and with these small floating cities, you can try all kinds of different governments, all kinds of different ways of interacting and cooperating with each other. You see, I've always said that capitalism and free market economics, these 5 principles of liberty that we talk about, create the most opportunity and the most wealth for the most amount of people. And that is indisputable. And from what we understand about the way societies are organized, this produces the best possible outcome for the most amount of people. And so anytime we start talking about socialism or communism or any of these other types of isms that don't directly relate to free markets, you can throw your hands up and say, no, that doesn't work. I can show you 15 cases. It's never worked. It always fails. The only thing that has ever produced real wealth and has allowed those at the bottom to rise to the top and to do so as quickly as humanly possible is capitalism. Freedom does that. But I have always given the caveat that is the best system ever devised by man to date. There may be a better system out there. How do you find it? Well, some people would say you have to completely allow the entire current economic system and political system to implode upon itself for us to go into Thunderdome-style pandemonium and then allow a new, freer market to emerge. Or, and here's a thought, you could create 100 different floating cities, each with their own way of creating and organizing society. And then you could see which ones were the most successful. And the ones that were most successful would, of course, expand, and people would move there. They would want to be part of it because it would have all of the best things that we would want. And then those people who really do want to live in a socialist society, who do want to, show up, work all day, give everything that they have to the collective and have it redistributed according to need, they can do that too. No problem with that. It provides us such an incredible opportunity to test different ideas. I mean, originally, I think that was one of the things that was really valuable about the states when we organized the United States of America, is that you had a bunch of different test tubes. The 13 original colonies that you had the ability to kind of test different ideas, see what worked, what didn't. If one state tried something and it failed miserably, well, then the other states could say, yeah, that didn't work so good. Maybe we don't do that. And as time has gone by, we've got kind of rigid and the political system has become, I guess, more solidified. And we just don't see a lot of that really challenging new ideas and new frontiers in how we organize ourselves as a society. And so the most exciting thing to me about floating island cities is the fact that we will really get to start testing new forms of government. And my hope is that we find an even better model than the one we currently have. Because capitalism has its downsides. There's no doubt about that. It's an imperfect thing. You want to talk about net neutrality, right? The internet is still the freest and the freest market that we have in the world, and it still is today, even with the net neutrality. But one of the things they point to is there were times when certain ISPs did in fact prevent other companies from utilizing their services. There were periods of time when that occurred. The free market is not perfect. Now, I would argue that if you look at any of those instances, that it wasn't government that solved it, it was actually the free market that solved it, and it just took a little more time than people would have liked. But my point here is, this is not a perfect system. It's just the most perfect system that we've been able to find. And I would love it if we could test a lot of new theories and a lot of combinations of theories to see if we could come up with an even better system. Because I promise you, if you come up with a better system that provides more wealth and opportunity for more people than the current capitalist, liberty-based system that we're in, I will switch. I will absolutely cast it aside, because what I care about is people being free to pursue their own self-interest and being free to live their lives as they see fit. And if they have the ability to do that, and to create more wealth and opportunity for themselves, then I am going to be all for it. So anyway, this is supposed to be together. They were talking about this being together in the next maybe 50 years or so, maybe putting these cities together. But I guess Peter Thiel is ready to go because he's talking about 2020. They're going to have this thing together. And that is really, really, really exciting. And you guys ought to be excited about it too. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about our last sponsor, Skillshare. Guys, I use this. I love these guys. They are, we talked in the first part of the show about what you're going to do into next year. And one of the common objections is, Jason, I don't really know how to do anything other than what I do now. Like, I've been an auto mechanic my whole life. It's all I know how to do. It's the only thing I'm good at. And I don't really know how to learn anything new. Well, what if there was a site that had over 3 million members, that accessed over 17,000 classes on everything that you can possibly imagine, from DSLR photography to social media marketing to digital illustration and much more. That's what Skillshare is. It is the Netflix for online learning. They got stuff in Adobe Illustrator and logo design and typography, mobile photography, portrait photography, email marketing, SEO, which is search engine optimization for if you do stuff on the web, branding strategies and business planning, public speaking. All this stuff is available. 17,000 classes, all for one low monthly fee. And here's the best part. Skillshare is giving my listeners a 1-month free trial of unlimited access to over 17,000 classes. Go to Skillshare.com/Stapleton to start your free month today. So you don't have any excuses. Not only are you supporting this show by going and to Skillshare.com/Stapleton and signing up for a free month, but you are also going to have something to do over the holidays when you get bored talking to your in-laws. So Skillshare.com/Stapleton, sign up for a free month and just start trolling around looking for new stuff to learn. All right. Let's close out today. What should we talk about here in closing? This is good. Well, we've been on this kick about business in this last episode, and I think I'll kind of stick to that and talk to some of you younger folks here about some of your opportunity in the future and why it might behoove you to at least consider trying a little different tact and a different path than maybe you had sold to you when you went to college. A lot of people are not retiring. And there's an article in here, this actually came out of the New York Times, a man at the age of 95 who's a judge, and 96 years old, excuse me, and he says, I'm just not interested in retiring. And I'm at the top of my game now. I'm still sharp mentally. He said, I have a lot more experience now as a judge. I feel like I'm a better judge than I was when I was in my 50s. And I feel like I'm more empathetic, and I also know the law better. And he said, I don't have any plans on retiring. And what we are seeing is, for a variety of reasons, older folks are not retiring. Now, the main reason they're not retiring is they don't have any money. So their nest egg is very small. Now, it's a lot bigger than your nest egg because your nest egg is zero. But if you've got a guy who's 65 years old and he's got maybe $100,000 or $200,000 saved up, he's not retiring. He can't. Now, he's got a nice nest egg. He got a little bit of money set aside in case there's something bad really happens to him, or he's got a little bit of money so he can make it a few years, but there's no way at 65 he's going to be able to retire with $200,000. It's just not going to last him that long. So he's got to continue working. And what you are seeing is older folks, these baby boomers who would normally be retiring and moving out of the workforce and freeing up space for the younger generation to come up. That's not happening. They are staying in those positions. And if they are losing their jobs because they're being the company is hiring younger or hiring cheaper, what ends up happening is these people are rolling back into the workforce who are willing to work for a lot less money. So you, as a young person, are in a precarious situation right now because you are competing against people who have 20, 30, 40 years of experience on you, who are willing to work for roughly the same amount of money, and who are much more stable than you are. And what I mean by that is, when you're in your 20s, even when you get up into your 30s, you're still busy. Like, you're still going out, you're having a good time, you're partying, you're not as reliable. Then you have a couple of kids, you settle down, now you're locked in, now you got to make a living. So now you're less likely to job hop, you're less likely to not show up for work on time because you really got to have that job. You can't live on ramen noodles, the baby's got to get fed. And so they're looking at you coming out of college and saying, what value does this individual really provide me? Over the 65-year-old who needs to have the job, who's willing to work for basically the same amount of money, who's got 20 or 30 years of experience, and who's super reliable. And the answer is it's going to be hard for you. And so the way you do it, you need to start now if you're young. So if you're in college right now or you're in high school and you're getting ready to go to college, one of the things that you have to do is you must do this is you have to decide what industry you're going to go into. And if you don't know that, then you ought to be working somewhere for free or for a very low wage, right? And see if you can find yourself an apprenticeship and see if you actually like the work that you're considering going to college to learn how to do. And if you're going to go to school, if you decide to go that route, rather than start a small business or rather than go into some sort of trade, then what you have to do is you have to be very clear on what it is that you want and what your degree is going to lead you into. And then you need to start working in that industry as soon as humanly possible. What you want to do is you want to walk into that employer's office and you want to be able to say to them, oh yeah, absolutely. Not only do I have a degree in this, not only have I been trained to do it, but I've also spent the last 3 years, 4 years working in the industry. And here is my resume over the last 3 or 4 years of work that I have done in the niche. Now, some of that's going to be paid work. Some of it's going to be free work. Doesn't matter. You have to write it off and recognize that what you're getting is work experience. And that work experience is what's going to help you be competitive when you get out into the job market. And I think young people are starting to realize this, but I'm still talking to a lot of them who are working as waiters or bartenders because they can make a lot more money doing that than they can, say, going and being an apprentice or working at an accounting firm for free or for very little wage. When in fact, what they should be doing is they should be at that employer working for them, building on their skill set. Because it's what's going to separate you from all of the other competition out there. And it's going to show that you're hungry and that you're motivated. And so as you guys are prepping for next year, those of you college kids out there, those of you who are getting ready to hit the workforce, ask yourself, what have I been doing in my field that makes me a better candidate than the next guy who's going to come in the door? Because if you can't answer that question, if your only response is, well, I went to college, well, I got a degree, I checked that box, that degree is becoming less and less relevant every single day because, number one, everybody's got it. And number two, the education is oftentimes so bad that the employer is having to retrain the employee when they show up anyway. I mean, in reality, when you look at the resume and it shows that you went to college, all it really means is that you were able to stomach 4 years of college. Well, he did it. He accomplished it. She accomplished it. I guess she got through it, so she's got at least some perseverance. She didn't drop out. But beyond that, what does it tell you? Nothing. I've hired a lot of people, and I can tell you, for me personally, and it could be because I've never been to college, but for me personally, the very last thing that I consider is whether or not they went to college. I care about work product. I care about what they've been doing in the field that they want me to hire them to do. That's what is most important to me because that tells me more about who they are and what they're willing to do and their work ethic than anything else. And so old folks are not retiring. They're staying in the workforce. That is going to continue because they don't have any money, and more baby boomers are going to be forced to stay in the workforce. And this is going to be something that you young folks are continually having to battle. So you have to put yourself in a position to succeed. And secondly, if you have another opportunity, if you're really good at what you do, there's no reason you have to work for somebody else. You can work for yourself. You can start your own business. You can compete against those other companies, and you can be the one hiring the young kid out of college. You can be the one trying to decide, do I want the 65-year-old or do I want the 21-year-old or 24-year-old? That's up to you. Only if you're willing to risk and only if you're willing to do what's necessary to achieve it. So anyway, guys, that's where I'll leave it for the balance of the year. I hope you enjoyed the shows this year. Thank you so very much. I'll be back, as I said, January 15th. And don't forget, Podcast Domination. Early enrollment ends on Friday. Go to jasonstapleton.com/podcasting to enroll, and I will see you all next year.